Did we figure out what the greeting in Scots would be?
No, we didn't really look it up. I mean, probably as best it would be, all right. And welcome to the podcast. I'm John.
I'm Andrea.
We are Voices in the Dark. We are learning how to human. This is the next episode of the Modern Stoic series. We'll be exploring letter number 48 with the thrilling, unthrilling title, On Quibbling as Unworthy of a Philosopher. But bear with us. I quite like this one because it set me off thinking in a number of different ways about current affairs, in particular social justice warriors.
Okay.
So we can get into that. It's about people getting lost in the detail, essentially, and the dangers of doing that and forgetting whilst you're obsessing over what words to use, whether or not you're actually trying to serve the cause that you set out to cause in the first place. And there's I think that's a lot of problems with the social justice warrior type, and I think it's morally dangerous and politically dangerous to get sucked into a vortex where you're like, no, you can't use that word or only this word because I say so, and then nothing can be said.
Yeah.
The only thing that is said is you can't speak. So Seneca was preempting all of this. Well done, Seneca.
He's already talking about no platforming and, First Amendment.
Yeah, I bet most social justice warriors will be very glad that Seneca has already been eternally no platform due to death. They'd be very scared of meeting him. So we're back in the studio.
Yeah.
Takes a lot to get everything working, but we look pretty shiny in the multicam.
Yeah, I was quite happy looking at myself. I was like, hey.
You're always happy looking at yourself. Let's be honest here. What do you think, listeners? If you're listeners, go check out the video on the YouTube channel or on voicesinthedark.world. If, as I'm sure many people will be, you think I'm just dressing too casually for the occasion, I'm afraid you're just going to have to suck a dick because I don't own any fancy clothes anymore.
No. I'm not that fancy, but I did put on a pair of my new jeans.
Mine are buried at the bottom of my bag, so they're not coming out.
Okay.
My jeans, my one pair of jeans.
You look very beachy.
Yes.
If I felt as muscular as you look, I would probably go for a beach look as well. I feel like I would pale in comparison at the moment, so I'm not going to draw that.
Okay.
Now I've drawn.
Let me flex.
Looking good, man.
Thank you kindly. # no homo, or
We'll split the difference. Half homo.
Okay, half homo. Okay, we can keep it even that way. Before we get totally sidetracked, would you care to tell the good people how they can talk to us and support the show?
Yes. So you can find us, of course, on iTunes and YouTube to listen to the podcast itself. If you want to check us out on the website where there's extra articles and extra information, it's voicesinthedark.world. So check us out there. And all the social medias, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. I was almost forgetting that
it almost doesn't exist.
Is V in the D. But for Instagram, it's .pod. But if you put V and the D in the search, you will find us. It's the funky logo with the neon sign.
Yes.
And ultimately, if you get to the website, you also find a link to our Patreon page, which is where you can support the show, give us a little bit of money every month, the same you would for a subscription like Netflix or, Spotify or whatever. But this is going to us. I was going to try to come up with something clever about like starving artists or like the people making a real difference, but then I was like, no, it's just us.
Yeah, if you think that we bring value into your lives, you enjoy the show, it would mean a lot if you could support us. If you can't, don't worry about it. Although ultimately we'll just go under and the show will stop.
Yes.
So there's a lingering threat to all of us included. So thank you for those people who do support us there. We appreciate you. Can't wait to eat rice and beans for the upcoming foreseeable future. Anyway, let's talk about Seneca.
All right.
Do we know what Seneca's views on suicide are, actually?
Wasn't he one of the ones that committed it?
Yeah, but he had to.
Okay.
Because he was told to. So his view, as far as we can tell, is like, if the emperor tells you to kill yourself, then you do.
Well, there's also like fuck you, like burn me at the stake or make me get eaten by lions. I will not do what you tell me, even if it's what I would do if you weren't telling me to do it, kind of thing. So he must have had some like, okay, it's acceptable.
No, just wonder. I mean, that's still ultimately my exit to any, when things just get too much and like, oh, you'll have to do this. Like, no, gone. Although these days I find it a much less emotionally charged subject. It's more a kind of perhaps more disturbing, calm sense of, yep.
Well, I think there's something remarkable about the decision to end, so long as it's done not under extreme anxiety and distress, because then it's not a choice. But I think there's sort of an ultimate expression of free will in calmly deciding to end yourself.
It's quite a hilarious paradox, right? The freedom to end freedom. Like the free choice that denies any future choices unless it turns out that there is some sort of afterlife or reincarnation of some kind. Yeah. And
if there was a clear sign of that, I would probably have done it myself, purely because I feel like it's a video game where you've kind of gone, when you've kind of ruined a video game play and you haven't lost yet, but you're not going to win. And so you just, load from an earlier save point. I feel like reincarnation would be that for me. I'd be like, oh, I fucked this one up. Next.
I fear that reincarnation probably just ultimately means that, yes, your atoms and pieces of you are going to end up existing in other forms throughout the world. And I think it was Corey Allen I heard recently, not sure, so maybe someone on his show talking about, they say, ultimately as parts of us that are still breathing the same air that Julius Caesar breathed in and out. You're like, yeah, not much, man. Not much. It's kind of...
it's always seen from a lofty point of view. No one ever points out that we're breathing in the air that he farted out. Or ultimately possibly re-eating his shit, like, as it goes through the cycle of life.
Is this the snake eating a snake, but the snake is also just a poo log? Anyway, let's look at this letter.
Yeah, let's do it.
So apparently both Seneca and Lucilius have been prevaricating over sending letters to each other and answering certain questions. But Seneca decides, okay, blah, 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 let's talk about friendship. So he clunks gears into that and says, the fact is, the same thing is advantageous to me, which is advantageous to you. For I am not your friend unless whatever is an issue concerning you is also my concern. Friendship produces between us a partnership in all our interests. There is no such thing as good or bad fortune for the individual. We live in common. So I'm going to need to move this laptop a bit. I'm craning myself around and trying to remain on mic at the same time.
But it's got a catchment area, so don't worry too much about it.
Okay, we can hope that, it's not turning into this kind of situation. So there's a commonality point here that I definitely agree with, that friendship is in significant part about being able to share a certain position and outlook, not on necessarily specific things, but just to feel like you are in common company to some extent. But it's not one, I think, that's going to be aligned in all things, like Seneca is saying. I think there's a line there, because if you want to hang out only with people whose interests wholly align with yours all the time, then you're just going to be surrounded by people exactly the same as you.
I think it's extremely dangerous for your mental health, ultimately. In terms of, well, probably it's not going to cause any major demise by itself, but it's going to make you cognitively less interesting and reduce the amount of consciousness that you have, because your friendship being a mirror of yourself means that it's just a feedback loop. There is no growth possible from it. Whereas, and part of the strength of a friendship, I think, is a meeting of souls, but they're two different notes playing a harmonic. Because then the sum is greater than the whole.
It's a complement.
Yes.
With a complement, not compliment, where they accentuate and improve each other. Makes me think of like the negative feedback loop, and maybe the way that happens most commonly is just the whole small town mentality where nothing changes. There's an Idlewild song, repping Idlewild with my shirt today, which goes something like, this is the kind of place where everyone knows each other and everyone hates that they know each other and no one's getting any younger. And that's the feedback loop, that kind of trapped situation where everything is being held in stasis and everyone's a little bit complicit in it. So I disagree with Seneca. I'm not sure if he maybe precisely meant this. Perhaps he meant more at the general level of, so not specifically that you're going to agree and have the same outlook or try to be finding the same outlook on everything, but instead the broader sense, maybe practically a spiritual level or an emotional level where somebody else is doing well and you kind of rejoice in that and you celebrate that and you're happy. Like, it makes you feel good to see them do well, which is a really cool antidote to envy, incidentally. It's I think that's kind of aligned with some Buddhist teaching anyway, where they talk about rejoicing in the positive things that are happening to other people, because then you get to share in them, whereas having the kind of jealousy, envy complex, you're not sharing in it, you're just feeling embittered and inadequate by comparison. And that can really fuck up in friendships and relationships where someone else is doing better and you choose to read the situation as an indictment on yourself and your failings instead of going, well done, man, you did great.
And our brains are shit at separating like envy out of someone's achievements from envy from them. Like basically I don't know if you've heard what fires together
Wires
together. So because it's, let's say, you selling millions of copies that is eliciting an envy response in me, my brain and you, the thought of you fires together with that idea, and then my brain begins to associate you with the envy and the bitterness as opposed to the achievement itself. So that's why it's dangerous to go that way with friends, because you're going to lose the friendship. You're going to start to either not like them, or potentially out of the shame, out of the feelings you have towards them that you internalize, like feel bad about yourself, and it's just going to go messy because our brains are inefficient at splitting things and keeping them separate.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like the same sort of mechanism that crops up in like dating or relationships, where you associate a person with, say, some feelings of inadequacy or unsureness in yourself, and the more that then your partner's doing well, the more that you feel triggered to feel lesser in some way. And like sometimes I think it's simply the case that you get a bad vibe from somebody, hopefully not someone you're already dating, but just somebody, and you don't really need to put your finger on why. Maybe it's interesting to try and find out, but if you just find yourself feeling kind of dirty and shit after, I mean, not dirty, I mean, maybe that's good, but unclean and shit after spending time with somebody, it's not so important to work out why. Just don't be around that person. If there is some, like an emotional vampire, we called them in the past. But if it's someone that you do care about and some sort of the tone or taste of the situation, the relationship has changed, then it is worth asking, well, why? Is it because you're feeling like concerned and worried about your own life and you don't have a sort of emotional capacity to I mean, I'll come clean. These are things that are on my mind.
Okay.
That I think that my suspicion is that sort of feeling a drain of excitement over seeing some people is in part because I feel drained completely by trying to work out what I'm doing next with my life. And so anything that feels like it could be a sort of responsibility, like being a good friend, being a good partner, feels like additional weight. And so the tendency can be to be like, well, let me just push that away. Then, I don't have the energy for that. And it's really not a good path to go, but it's a weird set of feelings.
Yeah, and you can't help it. Like, and I've got a similar thing basically about my own family. And it's not like I know that I'm doing it, but it's not like an active choice. It's more of a every now and then I'm like, oh yeah, I haven't called my mom. And it's because if I'm not doing well, it just having even just having like, oh, what are you up to? Like, oh, still the same nothing. It hasn't gone very far. I'm working very hard, but nothing's changed from the last time I talked to you. I just don't want to have that conversation. And it's easy to sort of start closing yourself off to multiple things. It's sort of a protective mechanism, I think.
Well, it's hiding from other places that you can fail in or feel like you failed in, I think. Or like another sort of responsibility. So if I'm struggling enough just to feel okay in myself, by myself, then the thought of having anyone else in the equation where I'm like, oh, am I fucking them off? Am I annoying right now? I realize I'm not in the best mood, so are you okay? And people, like, despite themselves, they'll pick up on that. They'll think something's odd, and they'll ask, and they'll keep asking. And that itself is a kind of, is a pressure. Like, are you sure you're okay? Like, I pretty much was. Just stop asking. Because you can't help or fix it for me. So could we please just, do something instead of like talking about how you're feeling? Could we just, go for a walk or talk about something else? Talk about Seneca.
And I think I've been really, really obsessing over the concept of self and consciousness lately. Like, I'm trying to relate everything back to it because it's a topic that's really been interesting me since I've been, overall, but since rewatching both seasons of Westworld. And I think when you're stressed or anxious and you feel like life's imploding on you, there's sort of a cognitive failure. Your sense of self and identity is degrading, and it's being challenged by your being unsure over yourself, over your choices, over everything. And at that point, any input feels like an attempt to overwrite the core program. It's an attack on the self because it's already weakened. So even just someone giving you their opinion feels like an overwrite of the core program. Like, you just want to be alone to re-find who you are, I think.
Well, when something feels very fragile, any additional input is crap. It's like, for a simple everyday example, it's where you've tried to make a decision of where you're going to get dinner or what you're going to have for dinner, and you were sort of frustrated over it, and you're like, oh, I'll have that. And then someone throws in their opinion, oh, that's not so good. Like, I don't care. At this point, I don't care if it's good or not. I was exhausted trying to make this decision. If you just run out of decision-making capacity and whatever, right now your extra input is making me very angry. Like, stop delegitimizing my, and I am thinking of a particular person, not you. Like, I don't give a shit about your opinion. I've made mine. Get out of my business. And it becomes very antagonistic because whilst they might think that they're simply, helping you choose something better to eat, it is, like you said, this sort of core program overwrite or you feel like, okay, I've just built the house of cards, which is what I wanted to do. Let me step back, and someone comes in with a wind machine, and you're just like, no.
It's not ready. It's not ready for that.
I have not yet turned this into like beautifully shaped concrete. These are just shitty cards. Anyway, so friendship.
I think it's funny. I mean, it feels like the core focus of this letter is friendship.
Yes.
Which I think is amusing, considering the first paragraph, like Seneca sounds like he's really ticked off at Lucilius's last letter to me. Like,
yeah.
Is that...
Well, I think he's ticked off in the sense of, my reading of it was that that maybe Seneca himself had been kind of overthinking what to say in response. And then maybe Lucilius is also doing a bit of overthinking. And this is Seneca saying, come on, we're friends. Let's just speak plainly here and not try and get super caught up in the specifics.
Okay.
And that's where he begins to talk about, let's see, self-interest. Before we get to the big quibbling bit, first there's this selfishness and self-interest as a threat to friendship. He says, and no one can live happily who has regard to himself alone and transforms everything into a question of his own utility. You must live for your neighbor if you would live for yourself. I think that that's very true in many ways, that pure selfishness is not a very good way forwards. But I think it really clashes with the kind of culture that we're living in, at least in the West.
It does. And I was sorry, I'll let you finish before I
have my mini rant. There's self-interest with an inherent, I think that we're encouraged to have self-interest with this inherent and implicit false claim that what's good for you is good for everyone else. And I think that's the heart of the kind of the capitalist entrepreneurial mindset in many ways, which is I get rich and it trickles down. No, it doesn't. It only does if you make sure it does and you work with other people in mind and give enough of a shit about them to be able to help bring them up and help them along with you on your goal. Simply saying, I become rich and that's good for other people, not true. Please continue with your point.
I was just saying that I resent that. I resent this idea, whether it's true or not, purely because it clashes mightily with my nature. And
which idea are you?
Oh,
which side?
the cooperating with others is like a cornerstone of how you should live. Because I find it an imposition that I have to go through to get what I want, rather than a genuine pleasure. Outside of the circle of people that I see as my friends, which is not what he's saying, right? He's not saying cooperate just with your friends. He's just saying...
Well, I feel like he's making a broader point, or that's my interpretation of it anyway, which I think you probably do agree with in terms of like a law of power way, that you need other people to get anything that you do want. You can't simply go, I'm going to make it happen all myself. And so you need to at least think of other people and how things can mutually benefit each other.
Yes.
Or you get nowhere.
Yes, but what I'm saying is that that's not a nice thing.
Well, and Seneca thinks it's a moral good, I guess, so there's the difference.
Yeah, I guess that's where I differ from Seneca. It's just because, like, I'll be quite like honest and open here. My misanthropy levels are sort of spiking through the roof. Like, you know, if it was a sound meter, it would be peaking red at the moment. I'm not happy with 99% of humanity, and the idea that I have to cooperate and be nice to them is an imposition rather than like a yay, like, you know, let's be good together. And I don't think we're that necessary to the existence of the universe.
No, I agree. I mean, after watching, we accidentally, ahead of watching a World Cup match, had the misfortune to watch the evening TV news.
Which I hadn't seen in 10 years.
Yeah, and I thought, okay, well, on the basis both of the way that you're telling people information, which is be scared over irrelevant stuff, and then having the little, let's interview Shirley and Matt on the street. What do you two have to say about this? And it's like, all that I can hear is that most of the population doesn't deserve to live. And I don't like having that kind of thought. I'm just like, if this is the country and culture I'm living in, if this is like the thing that can be aspired to as the average normal person, then fuck this shit. Yeah.
I'm more and more on the let's create AI so it can kill us all and replace us.
Yeah, let's do it. For end this episode. I feel uncomfortable having these sorts of thoughts because whilst it's fun to sort of jokingly exaggerate them to some extent, that's not the way that I want to feel. But I suspect that the very people who I thought came across as like really, really dumb on the TV, I suspect that if on a person-by-person basis I actually met these people, I would realize that there's something beautiful about all of them. That they'd be I would enjoy their company, you know, unless they turn out to be horribly racist or something. And yet, because it requires that level of immediate connection where you recognize that someone you thought was one way and then you meet them and you're like, oh, I get where you're coming from. It feels like a Herculean task. So the challenge then is to...
They'll be plenty nice. I'm sure they're lovely to their friends. You know, some of them will be nice parents, whatever, or they're contributing to society. But I'll tell you why it's so offensive and upsetting, which is both freeing but also sort of weird. Because... they're failing your humanity test. They're too close to being a human without being one in your frame of reference of what they should be like. So it's it's the reality of the uncanny valley. You know about that concept? When if the audience doesn't know, the uncanny valley is that sort of moment or sort of section of a computer graphics or 3D animated movie where you get close enough to reality where it's almost fooling you but not quite, and the brain interprets it in a funny way because it looks like an animated corpse. And that triggers disgust sort of mechanisms because you're meant to abhor the dead so that you don't get infected or get weird stuff.
And it's partly that perhaps, but I think for me it's probably a much more like close to home situation that is what I fear to be. Yeah. And I spent many years of my life growing up in schools being bullied for as being like boring or weird or generally like, uncool. And so when I see people who I feel fall into this category, the internal judge goes nuts. It's like, no. It sees like that is a danger. That is not a thing to be like. That is negative, because I was conditioned essentially that if you witness or embody these characteristics, you will be socially punished. And so I think it's a very personal reflex to me, for me. The same way that, you know, people who've had issues with like eating disorders and so on can be the most extremely judgmental when they see fat people. Or if you know, even if you're just like concerned about your own weight, right? Because then you turn to the world of projection, where the things that you're uncomfortable about or frustrated about in yourself, you unconsciously criticize them heavily in other people, because it's as though there's a fragmentation of self going on. I want to read Jung because he wrote about this, but I sort of aware roughly of the ideas that your idea of self doesn't currently have a place for these negative aspects, the things that you've called negative. And if you're not going to integrate and recognize them in yourself, then the unconscious kind of picks them up and desperately hurls them around and puts them on the other people around you. So that's why a certain friend of ours can complain how everybody else is messy, when in fact she's the messiest person. Or that everyone else is lacking motivation and drive, when in fact she's the person who's most frustrated with her current position and is doing nothing about it.
No. Yeah, it's funny. It's a weird situation. I don't know. I guess I'm just disappointed. Like, that's the feeling I get from those. Like, watching those people give their opinion about whatever was happening. I think was it political?
Or it was about the fact that because England's been doing well in the World Cup, there aren't enough England flags available to buy, and but it's okay because although everyone might be late into work tomorrow, if England do well, let's ask Shirley on the sewing machine. Like, oh well, I suppose yes, I suppose people might. It might be possible that people might perhaps maybe they'll have a drink.
You're triggering me now.
I'm like, oh, please, I don't think it was necessary to ask Shirley on the sewing machine about her view as to whether people might get a bit jolly.
Yeah. So, for me, the trigger for me is the disappointment and fright at the reinforcement of the idea that I might be the only one that's actually alive. That this is all an elaborate yet disappointing simulation.
How do you think Elon Musk feels most of the time?
I just, it's terrifying because it's lonely as well. And I don't like the idea very much that the only way humanity can advance is through death. Through these people to die and the next generation to be like 0.1% marginally more intelligent or sophisticated. I feel like, because actually maybe that triggers in me the idea that maybe I can't change. What if I'm the same as everybody else, but I'm deluded and I'm just deluding myself and thinking that I can grow and improve my essence and existence? Maybe it's just an illusion.
That's a terrifying thought. I think I want to clarify that I don't think this is about intelligence in the sense of like book learning,
no,
and so on. This is not about whether people have had a certain level of education. No, this is about whether or not people have a certain curiosity versus those who are very certain that everything is the way it is and is a certain way, and their little bubble version of the world is definitely all there is. Because if I say I think that person is stupid, I don't mean because they don't have a bunch of degrees and haven't read loads of books. I mean they are deeply uncurious and extremely sure of themselves. And that really frightens me.
Well, like an example of this for me is my mother. My mother didn't finish, or maybe just finished high school. Was put to work at a young age, was always quite sick, so she didn't get as much of an education because of her asthma anyway. She's not learned, like educated that way. But she's one of the cleverest people I know. She figures things out. She can figure people out. She's got the machinery, the CPU power to do things with. It's just the memory hasn't been loaded with, algebra and Jung.
Yeah. But I'm so much more impressed with that when I encounter people who have a lot more of that. Like, it seems much more practical and to do with life. And I'm bowled over by people who have that kind of ability to make incredible insights and really understand how humans work at a much better level than I think most psychologists.
Yeah. And it's about having a cognitive process that is capable of analysis, change, self-reflection, reflection about others, and the ability to set up frameworks and parameters to analyze what's going on and then make predictions. That is intelligence, regardless of what it's utilized on. That is the core of what I value in a human being, regardless of whether it's being used in being the best football player in the world, or reading people, or being like a highly learned academic that is able to, write a really insightful book about humor in Soviet Russia.
Oh, hello. When it goes wrong, we end up in the world of quibbling, which Seneca gets to, and which I'm going to accuse you of at times. So he says,
bring it on.
He says, and on this point, my excellent Achilles, I should like to have those subtle dialecticians of yours advise me how I ought to help a friend, or how a fellow man, rather than tell me how I should help a friend or fellow man, rather than tell me in how many ways the word friend is used and how many meanings the word man possesses. Because we can get so incredibly caught up on the specifics of words and definitions, and I think you have a tendency to fixate on that. Like, word's not right. The word's not right. So my take is this, and then you can offer your response or rebuttal. We can get so caught up on it because sometimes it is very important if there's a fundamental miscommunication happening because two people or more have different associations with the same word, so they don't realize they're talking at cross purposes. So then it is good to define the word. But I don't think that finding the perfect word is often really the answer. The point is more to talk about different understandings and realize where each person is. And I think you most likely aren't going to find a new word to clean everything up. It's about being able to get a sense of where someone else is coming from, what weight or personal experience they're bringing to the conversation about that particular issue. And that's where the core of communication lies. And so it could be handy to come up with a word for it, but I really think that the word itself, to put the emphasis on that, like Seneca says, we get stuck. That we sit down and have a meeting about how could we explore consciousness, and all you talk about is, what does consciousness mean? And then you never have the discussion.
Yeah. I agree in principle. I have to be extra careful because I realized at some point that I don't necessarily hold the same emotional value in the symbolism of the words that we are utilizing. Which means there's a breakdown in language. It's almost as if we're speaking different languages, but because we're not, there is even more misunderstanding because I will say a word that, like I will often say a word that triggers you because you don't like using that word because to you it means this emotion and this other context related to your growing up that I just don't have, and that deep down in my essence I don't have time for. I don't want to I want to get to what I'm. And so I know that that's inside of me. And so I'm like, okay, well, I need to figure out the exact compatibility here because it's as if we're, I'm a Mac and you're a PC back in the days where the file systems were incompatible at all. So you couldn't even transfer files.
I mean, maybe I facilitate the problem more than I realize whilst accusing you. Yes, I also snag up particular words, although I think I probably do that more with you because I know you can take it and won't have a fit about it.
Yeah.
as opposed to if other people are going to feel very insecure if I'm like, that word doesn't mean that. And I would do that not simply, I wouldn't want to do that in the middle of a conversation where they're trying to tell me something, but if they sort of said their point and I'm confused, I'll be like, do you mean, I don't think that's what is that the line from The Princess Bride, that word? I don't think it means what you think it means.
Yeah. Inconceivable. I think it might be a vestige of the point when when I was learning English as a second language, where my brain was translating from Italian to English. Because virtually no word in like a double language dictionary is actually a correct translation.
Well, it'd be hard because most words in any language will have multiple meanings, and so they're not the multiple of one and the multiple of the other are not going to interlock perfectly.
In different historical social contexts.
Yeah.
Okay? I would say, for example, the word drug, we talked about in the past how it's bad. Like,
drugs are bad, okay?
People associate danger, illicit, illegal with the word drug.
Yep.
It's stronger. It's even stronger in Italian.
Mm-hmm.
If you say droga, it means smack. Like, it's, you'd be way more likely to say medicina for any form of drug that is a medicine.
Okay.
But so, for example, if I use the word drug in English, like as an Italian, I would have a very different emotional context.
So you have a bit of a sense of that when you say it in English?
Well, potentially. And in the transitional period, making sure that the other person got the right message from what I was trying to say was something I had to really think about. Because I would use a word expecting the textbook version of it to mirror the emotional context that I grew up with and find it lacking. Yeah. So I think it positioned me to be way more careful about that, and that it's something that I've retained even though now my brain has switched to English being the primary language.
I think this really highlights for everybody that it's not just a language to another language thing situation. When you ever speak to another person, you're in a way also trying to find a common language. It's like you've both got the same set of tools or whatever, but you each are playing them differently. And say an extreme case is the word rape to someone who has been raped means a lot of different things to someone who just uses the word rape with no such experience. And that's an extreme case, but I think that it's very true, on a sliding scale back down from that these things cause associations often, these words cause associations that are often unconscious to us. And so it's worth asking yourself, why am I uncomfortable with that word or concept? But, Seneca is saying don't just get fixated on it.
So here's my question, though, because what made me so interested in figuring out what someone means, like, what do you mean by that word? Is that the right word? Was the fact that I would most often notice that other people's arguments and fights were because they didn't quibble. They went straight and they were like, no, you're wrong. People like, anyone that says that needs to die. And like, what? Like, because the other person thinks that someone saying that is actually saying that all this type of person should go to jail. Like, I don't know. Like,
that's a great point to bring up. That I think that there's a way to mix these together. That I don't think that it's so quibbling, or the way Seneca is presenting it, is in this very academic way to go, no, that word doesn't mean that. That's antagonistic and combative. Whereas if someone says something that seems completely incoherent to you, like a super strong statement of, no, anyone who uses violence needs to go to prison. And you're like, okay, so I've heard you say that. Now, do you mean in absolutely any circumstance, absolutely everyone needs to go to prison? Is that what you're saying? I'm not sure. And then if it's a question, I think very rapidly the thing sort of falls apart to like, oh no, I don't mean everyone. I meant like the people in the particular story that we're talking about at this time. Or when I said violence, I meant because the story was about violence among young people. It was like, no, if adults are abused. And suddenly they'll give you all this extra detail that never came out through the words that they said, but was in their mind.
Right.
So they thought they gave you the full story, but those are not the words that they said.
Or the word violence to them means murder and rape.
Yeah.
But not punching someone in a pub, because they called your mother fat.
And just by being able to ask, so not quibble in the sense of meh, but like, did you mean this? And thankfully, when I've managed to do that, the majority of the time I've sort of been pleasantly surprised that, oh yeah, this person isn't a complete maniac. It was just a misunderstanding. And I think very often it is usually a misunderstanding where something seems just completely appalling or confusing or someone's acting extremely badly. They just had bad information or didn't convey their information very well. So yay. So Seneca doesn't like the stupid theoretical thinkers who just wank and weep, I wrote. Wank and weep over the issue of how to define the terms, and then they never actually say anything with them anyway. And it's not like you get to control the definition anyway, because it's always experienced differently by every individual person. So if you want to go and be the new Oxford English Dictionary and nail everything down, good luck with that, because everybody else has got their own internal dictionary. It's good that we need to have enough in common, say, or we need to, if we're playing music, we need to at least have some sort of similarity of a sense of what certain keys are or not, and then we can play something together. And there's so much room in that to do unusual, unexpected things and to play different instruments in different ways. But there's got to be some sort of ability to connect in the first place.
Yeah. See, my initial instinct is certainly the instinct I would have had as an adolescent would be to improve state-sponsored education to teach everyone better sort of vocabulary and more synchronization. But I feel like whilst that would still be fun, kind of interesting and fun to bring up everybody's, can you say eruditeness?
Level of erudition?
Yeah, I was trying to make that into...
Well, I mean, that's ironic.
Yeah, no, I was like, is that like, because English is pretty flexible with creating kind of new words, but sometimes like, no, that cannot be said. Which is funny, because in Italian, it's like, no, that definitely cannot be said like 90% of the time. If it's not in the dictionary, you can't say it. But English is more flexible. So whenever you find an exception, you're like, but why? Why is there an exception?
So I'd say this would be like the equivalent of saying we need everyone to talk like they used to on the BBC. Like, oh, welcome to the BBC. You're listening to the World Service, and this is how we speak English. So, okay, you could try and make everyone speak like that, but the reality of it is that 99% of the audience listening to that are like, we do not speak this way, this is freaky as fuck. Like, we don't speak like the Queen.
I think more of Christopher Hitchens and Stephen Fry when they're trying to make a point. And they're not using big words because they're trying to sound clever. They're using the full repertoire of colors that they have to create a painting that is more subtle and nuanced and means exactly what they feel on the inside. They're communicating exactly what they have inside their brain instead of going, I have a beautiful landscape in mind, and then it looks like a 5-year-old's drawing when you draw it, and the other person goes, no, I don't get why you want to live there. Oh, what do you mean? It's a beautiful home, but you haven't communicated the concept the way it really is inside. And if you could communicate properly the full extent of the emotional background, sociological background you have inside that is trying to come out as words, then you'd reach better consensus and better understanding from others.
Yeah, I mean, I like that point very much, though I don't think that of those two speakers. I think there's a lot of showing off going on.
Yeah.
But, it depends, though, because, I mean, a perfect example of where you're thinking of particular occasions where you've heard them speak where you felt that really came out. Whereas my shorthand, let me just, like, pull up my filing cabinet of what I think of how those guys speak, and I'm like, pompousy, showy, offy. Because we've got different memories at play. But at least I'm completely open to the fact of thinking, oh, you're probably thinking of instances where it really works. Or it's just my personal reaction.
I think, well, this is an occasion where their language would trigger your, it's bad to be clever and posh.
Because that's what I've been punished for.
Yeah. But, sorry, coming back to the original point. So this is what I would have as an adolescent thought would be fantastic to improve communication. But these days, I would probably think that if you only had money for one program, so it could be this educational program, or an improvement in teaching people emotional communication, so nonverbal.
Emotional. Do it.
Which, for me, would help for understanding others. I would find it kind of like, oh, why do I have to learn this? Because I don't, like, I want to communicate with words, not with emotion.
You don't get to.
But 99% of the population would benefit greatly from going, oh, well, he said, it feels like I'm being raped by the government, but he's smiling and he's got a twinkle in his eye. He's not trying to make me feel bad about sexual, violence. He's actually making a joke, which might be in poor taste had he known that I've been raped, but I get that where he's coming from. Like that, sort of being able to dissect someone's intention.
How empowering that is to be able to not be triggered and turn yourself into a victim of somebody else, because the emphasis, which will lead to the likes of our social justice warrior stuff right now, is so much towards everything should be censored for fear that somebody might be offended, instead of how about we could learn more the tools to recognize and think, I am not automatically a victim. Shall we assume that this person is simply ignorant of the situation, hopefully has a better intention in mind than it seems to me, instead of shaming them and like Twitter storming them and trying to destroy their lives and have them fired? Could it be that we could actually try and show them, hey, there's this other bit of life and other people's experience, and when you say these things, it can seem very upsetting because of this, this, and this. And then there's at least a moment in which the person who said the thing might go, oh, shit, I really didn't mean to upset anyone. I hadn't thought about that. Or, okay, well, actually, I meant it more as a joke. I'm sorry you feel that way. My intention wasn't to hurt you, but look, my intention was over here and something else. So a possibility that at least that could happen before the flame wars completely take off, and some of them still will. And that's fine, but I do not like this default position of it just gets to the point where you think nobody can ever say anything because it might offend someone.
Oh, it definitely will.
I mean, that is Orwellian style censorship.
And it's also an ever concentric and shrinking sphere. So you start with like, oh, this is clearly offensive, so we can't say that. And that restricts the human experience down to a lower level, which then has another sphere, like, and it keeps imploding inwards until finally, like, suddenly we can't do or say anything because our level of discomfort is informed by the highest level of discomfort we've ever had or not. So we're more willing to accept, having a discussion about whether or not kids should be homeschooled if we've had a discussion about whether kids should be sent to internment camps when they're immigrating to the United States.
We have a better perspective.
Oh, okay, well, it's not as bad as that. But if you start removing things you can talk about or discuss, then it will reduce the ability of human beings to recognize what is bad or what it isn't. And we grow through offense. Those things that I was upset and offended by as an adolescent, which have helped me grow as a person. And also, like, a baby is offended by being picked up to be fed when it wanted to sleep. Should we let it die?
Yes. Fuck that baby. Here's a really simple but maybe silly example. A friend of mine started using the word faggot. So a friend, it's a joke. And yet I found that I really didn't like it. I was like, somehow it crossed some sort of internal boundary for me that I guess I must have associations of people using it in a very hateful way. And I said, I know this is kind of daft given all the shit that we talk, but I actually really don't like hearing that word. Could you, just leave it off the table? And he was kind of cool with it, though curious. And then after some time had passed and maybe the word came up again somewhere, or I used it, and I was like, you know what, I think I got over it. You know, and I would certainly rather be in the position where I'm like, okay, I don't care about that word anymore, rather than being like, oh no, the word might appear anywhere and I'll be triggered and it'll be terrible. Like, whatever it was for me, recognizing like, well, okay, it doesn't actually hurt or attack me. It's the same as any other word, that it depends who's using it and why as to whether or not I'm going to be angry or offended.
Have you ever seen the South Park episode about the word faggot?
No.
It's fantastic. So the kids are being kind of punished, or, you know, like they're being told that they can't say that word because it's offensive. And they have to go all the way to the Congress, I think, to explain why it's fine. Because they're calling really loud, obnoxious biker gangs faggots. Mm-hmm. But they wouldn't call their gay friend a faggot.
Right.
You know? And there's this elaborate speech about, you know, when is it okay to be called a faggot or not. It's a really good episode.
You should check it out. I feel they're very hit and miss these days.
Yeah, it's going to it's one of the older ones.
Mm. Good. So before we run out of recording time, here's Seneca actually being funny on if you quibble and how then you can't communicate. Mouse is a syllable. Now a mouse eats its cheese. Therefore, a syllable eats cheese. Suppose now that I cannot solve this problem. See what peril hangs over my head as a result of such ignorance. What a scrape I shall be in. Without doubt I must beware, or someday I shall be catching syllables in a mousetrap. Or, if I grow careless, a book may devour my cheese. Unless perhaps the following syllogism is shrewder still. Mouse is a syllable. Now a syllable does not eat cheese. Therefore a mouse does not eat cheese. What childish nonsense. It's like, yeah, if you get obsessed with this kind of ridiculous level of obsession over if this is this, then everything else has to transform around it, you are screwed. And I think it's not even that exaggerated when we think of the postmodernistic social justice warrior shit that I've been talking about before, in which everything seems to become, or at least, you know, in so many conversations I've heard or news stories that I've read, everything is focused on who is speaking, rather than trying to more compassionately understand where someone is coming from or why they might say the things they are. So a person doesn't only speak as a cisgendered white male shitlord, okay? That brings some factors that are related to those positions, maybe putting aside the shitlord one, to the table. Sure, we are all going to be speaking to some extent from the position of the life trajectory that we've had, whether or not we recognize it. And so, but to then move to simply discount someone completely is to censor and shut them down and not allow them the possibility to learn and recognize things they didn't know. So if someone is open-minded enough, and they're not going to be if you shame them all the time, to be like, oh my God, does every woman genuinely get like groped in the nightclub or on public transport? Shit, I really didn't know that. Is that really true? And then all the women are like, yes, it's really true. And like, oh God, I had no idea because I've never experienced that because I'm a man.
Yeah.
Like, if there's an opportunity to learn that, rather than being like, oh, men are disgusting, you're horrible.
It's one of those weird biases, those ones, because a man is biased to go, like, to underestimate the extent of the problem, because he doesn't do it. And he doesn't think anyone that he knows that is a good person does it. So therefore, how can it be, you know, when he hears, oh, men are terrible, he takes it personally and gets defensive and thinks, you know, feminism is a problem because, you know, you're going too far. Whereas from the woman's perspective, you know, maybe 1% of the male population is groping everybody.
Yeah, because it doesn't take that many.
So all women are getting groped, or close to all women are getting sexually harassed and groped. So to them, the experience is men are a problem. Yes. And that's the other side, which isn't true. Some men are a problem, but because they're so prolific and, and horrible, you have a disconnect between the meaning of what the problem constitutes and how serious it is on both sides.
And if you're going to shut someone down because of who they are, like I said, there's not going to be a space for them to learn a different perspective. And it's also then not to appreciate. I mean, so do you call a child a fucking retard and they shouldn't get to speak on something because they're trying to talk about something they don't know about yet? How is that helpful? How is that going to be positive? And if someone is open enough to try and learn, or if you can more sensitively I'm not imagining this during like pepper spray rallies and sit-ins and things on university campuses, but if it's just a conversation, let's try and find a way to mutually understand each other's position better.
Yeah.
I heard Scroobius Pip interviewing Laurie Penny on his podcast, which is cool because I hadn't heard Laurie Penny interviewed at length before, and the perception I had of her was pretty skewed by mostly encountering people like showing dramatic moments of like Twitter flame wars and things.
Right.
And listening to her, just and why I like podcasting a lot, is it gave me the opportunity to hear her talk at length and go, oh yeah, she seems smart and open to talking. And while she disagreed with Pip on some things, she didn't call him a cisgender shitlord in the process. And I was like, oh, okay, cool, this is great. Now I've learned that Laurie Penny is someone I'm much more interested in and would like to hear more from. And he talked about how he'd had a trans male to female person on the show, and he'd ask some questions, trying to be open-minded, but would still make silly missteps. But that was a good learning process. A misstep like, so what do trans people think? And this person, I don't know remember her name, said, well, I mean, I can only talk from my experience in this small town in England where I live. I can't speak for everyone. He was like, oh yeah, of course, silly me. But we fall into that trap sometimes. Like, you are a representative of, to me, a little-known minority. Perhaps you could tell me about it. And he also discovered some sort of latent homophobia in himself that he said, look, I have no problem with trans people at all. But if I were to be honest, I don't think I, as a straight man, could have a sexual relationship with a trans woman. Because it would always be in the back of my mind to an extent that there used to be a man. And the trans woman said, and I love this, like, well, all the women that you've slept with also used to be children, but that doesn't make you a pedophile. I was like, that's amazing.
It's an interesting concept. Not sure if, I mean, it's an exaggeration to draw a point.
But it captures something.
Yeah. There is definitely a hint of truth there, but at the same time, I don't think you need to be a homophobe to make that distinction for yourself.
No, and everyone is down. It's not like, okay, if I'm a bad person unless I sleep with every possible configuration of human. We have our preferences, but it's cool and interesting to try and understand where they come from.
Yeah.
Or like, if you have a problem with something, why is that?
Yeah. Well, for example, to him, it triggers the association of this person was a man, and he can't stop thinking about that. If he also couldn't stop thinking this person used to be a child, maybe he'd have a problem with that as well.
But having had this confrontation with that realization, he's like, you know what? I think it's fine now. He just hadn't drawn the dots with himself,
right,
that it was an issue over the idea that there was an innate manness that would make him gay, and perhaps from whatever upbringing and background he's had, that's simply not a thing. That's not okay. I don't know, it's confusing because he's clearly not a homophobic dude.
No. It's interesting.
There's a grain of something.
Concepts,
yeah.
I find it hilarious that, but you said, ironically, that cis, shitlord, whatever, that cis was created as a concept when sort of trans or the non-cis community wanted a way to refer to the normals in a way that could be slightly derogatory, or so that it was alternative rather than default weird.
Yeah.
But in biology, they took it from biology. Chemistry rather. And trans molecules, biologically speaking, are inactive or don't work.
Okay, that's a problem.
Well, cis molecules are the ones that do what it's supposed to do, generally speaking.
We just got a problem now. Let's quibble over the language. Is that normal has been valued significantly to mean good,
right?
Rather than normal just being the most common, most likely.
Yeah, there's this weird desire to be normal, accepted,
Fuck that shit, man.
No. You should wish to not be discriminated, but who gives a shit whether or not anyone in particular, but even society accepts you? I don't want to be accepted by society. Not unless society was way cooler than it is.
Yeah,
Like, I don't need that lady talking about the English flags to accept me.
That's exactly
Ever.
where I was going to go.
I just wanted to leave me alone and not affect any of my rights.
And not give me an English flag.
No.
I don't be wanting that. I think we need to hurry ourselves to the end lest we run out of recording time. As far as I can remember, it may already
88 minutes.
I don't know when we started. Mate.
Oh, okay. Shit.
So Seneca says the point of philosophy is actually to be able to see more clearly and to help other people. He says, I should deem your games of logic to be of some avail in relieving men's burdens if you could first show me what part of these burdens they will relieve. So basically, know the purpose of your quibbling before you get into it. If it's just masturbation over it, then shut up. And then say if you're a social justice warrior, maybe you do know the purpose of what your quibbling is, that you want to make sure that everybody's voice is heard, the rights of minorities are respected, that we try and understand better the condition of people whose lives we haven't lived. Fantastic. Great. But then are your actions actually aimed at producing a productive result, or is it more about giving yourself social brownie points and shaming other people? Because that seems to be the big trend, that it's like, you're a wanker, you're a bad person. Okay, do you have anything to add to that? Would you like to improve mutual understanding? Do you have a plan as to how we could do things better? No, apparently not. You just want to throw bombs.
Well, I'm of two minds about this, because on one hand, there's the incongruity of, like, are you actually creating a society which could accept anyone? Mm-hmm. Or are you just trying to backlash in a way that gets your system approved over what was there before, and then we have a backwards problem?
I think the pendulum is swinging too far.
And there's a lot of sort of centrists and right-wing people complaining about how the left is now, lost ownership of free speech, and they're trying to, no platform and blah, blah, blah. And in a way, it's right. And in the other way, I'm like, fuck you, assholes. Fuck you, because it's your fault that they've gone down that route. You've oppressed and, removed and objected to free speech. And guess what? You were the evolutionary pressure on the left and socially integrated side of politics to evolve to a place where they could get shit done. And guess what? They're getting shit done this way. They're getting shit done. There's no denying that no platforming and being aggressively sort of calling people racists or transphobic and things, it fucking works. You know why it fucking works? Because all the other stuff before that was gentle and civil didn't fucking work. So fuck you, stop complaining.
So now I must ask you, well, what is the next step so that we can have a less extreme version that works?
I don't know. I think maybe it is 20 years of overly PC stuff.
It better not
and
be,
then it comes fully around in some way.
I just hope it would be good if the pendulum swings like they are going to happen. But if we could see it more as like a circle where perhaps we're managing to drive the route a little better, or the pendulum swings don't have to go way out one way and way out the other, but try and find a better equilibrium.
It's about setting in place the correct frameworks. So, for example, the right wing in general talks about the wonders of the free market, whereas the left side of politics tends to go, oh no, we need to regulate things, blah, blah, blah. And, the free market can work, potentially, if it's not free. So the right wing puts in place a free market, but then bails out huge companies that fuck things over.
Yeah.
They, break up competition from when a large enough company lobbies them to prevent something from happening. So that's not a free market. It's regulation in favor of corporations. So there are a lot of concepts like free speech, free markets, that if implemented correctly would work way better than what they're working in now when they're not actually being upheld correctly.
Well, then we need to understand, and people seem to have a big problem understanding what free speech means. It's not the right to say stuff that you think is okay. It's partly that, but it's the right to allow anybody to say anything, even if you don't like it.
Yeah, but also, it's the right to say anything and remain free from government persecution.
Aha, yes.
Right?
Important.
So it's not the right of having no consequences to you saying all homosexuals should die. Mm-hmm. That does not mean that you can call on your right of free speech when you get punched, You can call on your right not to be punched because that's assault, but that's different. But it has consequences, and also if your speech has consequences, so by saying that because you're an imam of certain influence, you cause young people to kill someone, then you've effectively triggered a weapon through people.
Well, it's incitement to violence directly, as opposed to simply stating some views.
Right. So the government isn't persecuting you for saying what you've said, but it's jailing you potentially for abusing your power.
Yeah. This is a deep rabbit hole to go into. So
there's all these things to take into account where if the nuance is missed and people don't quibble to like make sure that the other side understands what is being argued. Like, I'm not saying that they should be able to say this and this happened and that be free of consequences from the result of their actions, but they should be able to say it without just the fact that they said something, go to jail, or like it is when it's most offensive that we should protect speech.
I would rather know what my enemy was thinking anyway.
Right. There's all these kind of things to be aware of that an average person, not understanding, thinks like, oh, if we allow this person to say this, we're approving what they say, or like.
Yeah, the right to say something, and then equally everyone else has the right to say, shut the fuck up.
Right.
I can also like to round off on a positive note, said all homosexuals must die. Well, they will. Ultimately.
Just let them be.
Yeah,
they're going to die.
Yeah, exactly. This is, until immortality is reached, we're all going to die. Don't worry about it.
Yeah.
Num, 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 dick. Anyway, I believe that was essentially the end. Getting caught up on technicalities was the last note there. And, I had some point about Stalin to make, but I think that actually we covered it better without bringing Stalin into the equation. So Seneca rounds off saying, don't waste your precious time on the superfluous and quibbling bullshit.
Okay.
So thanks, Seneca. I appreciate that. Now, please make your letters a bit smaller again, because I think it's
he complains about Lucilius's letter, but his is pretty long.
Yeah, it's pretty long, pretty wordy. So there we go. Hope you like the show, everybody. And come talk to us on our Facebook discussion group.
Yeah, come in the Facebook discussion group group to talk to us about this episode. We'd love to hear your thoughts. If there's anything that offended you or anything you agreed with, we'd love to tell you you're wrong.
Or even if they agree with us. Yeah. Okay, good.
Have you never done that? Like if I'm making a point and instead of getting like okay, convince me a bit more, I get like an outright agreement to, which leaves me kind of stumbling forward because I have too much momentum. I went in with too much force.
It's the Aikido.
I almost feel like I have to reverse my position. It's like, well, are you agreeing with me because you've thought about this well? Let me test you.
It sounds like you've just given away the keys to winning arguments with you.
Just agreeing.
Just stumble into the confusion and then you manipulated. So, bye everybody. Till next time, please.
Yeah. Be silly, be kind, and be weird.